So, you think about a bad platoon.
Energy.
You think about a bad platoon. So you think about a bad platoon where you have a platoon leader that thinks he's like the god.
The next
and
Patton.
like, they need my leadership. That guy doesn't even think he should have to ever talk to a private. In a good platoon, you know that like if the gun isn't clean, if the assistant gunner isn't on it, literally your life could be in extreme danger because you're, the people that actually do the job aren't competent or aren't prepared or aren't, and when you make it about you, it's impossible to have a good result.
Sure.
And I'm not taking credit for this. Like Hollywood assembled a team, and then the great team members that he brought on, guys like Josh Collins and Steve Lemieux, they also made recommendations of people that they had. So we ended up with this very good group of people where the guy setting up the light, the guy holding the boom, not that any of us were perfect, but everybody was very focused on executing their piece of the pie
To the best.
and there is no film, there's no TV show that is made by one person.
Sure.
And so, when you're at a premiere, I got love because I was the director, right? Hollywood got love as the producer, Dan got love as the lead. But the reality is, without the Garrett Spakes, without the Pollys, without all of these people running around, without Ben Bunn, Ben Bunn was in it. But
killed too.
But he also is the guy that, like, when he wasn't on that day,
What can I do?
Yeah.
Built the sand table, for episode 4. Without those extra efforts, the show just wouldn't have been as good. And if you have enough of those extra efforts that don't show up, the show isn't good.
Right.
If you're a lazy person and you see, I kind of see a shadow on that light, but no one notices, and you just say it's not worth it, well, then the shadow's going to be in the scene.
Yeah.
The sound's not great, but I don't really want to take the time to go fix the lav. Sound's not going to be as good. Like, it all adds up.
Yeah.
And so having motivated people, but also not being a jerk to people,
Sure.
and, I think it's all critical.
Sounds like you kind of walk a really fine line.
Yeah, because you have to be demanding enough to get performance and to stay on a schedule, but you can't, they're people. They are fulfilling a role just like you're fulfilling a role. If everybody fulfills the roles, you probably have a good product. If a few people miss, it makes a huge difference.
Right.
For gasoline dog! For gasoline dog!
Throughout this process, is there anything that wildly surprised you? And if you can give me something that you had to work through, something that was bad, and also something that surprised you that was good, like through this whole thing.
Something that surprised me, the performances in particular that Kenny, who plays Raph, and Sam, who plays Carter, gave were vastly different than what I expected. So I wrote Kenny. In my mind, Kenny was a very, like, he was the whiny one. He was the one that was like, he wasn't genuine. But there's nowhere in the script that says that. That's just how I pictured him in my head. And with Carter, I expected him to be like annoyingly forthright and like, this is the way life is. And actually they flipped that without me ever saying anything.
Really?
Carter plays his character like a little sleazy, or Sam plays Carter a little sleazy, and Kenny plays Raph completely genuine. Like he's saying ridiculous shit, but he means it, and there's no malintent. So that was a surprise. No, don't get up, Hollywood. I want everyone to know how loud your phone is. The phone is all the way across the room, and you can hear it. And so, my instinct at first was like, oh my God, this isn't what I intended. But I fought that instinct because it was so good. And I just let them run with it. And so the characters, as I wrote them, the lines didn't change.
Sure.
But my intention, I just let it switch. So,
Right.
So I won't take credit for that. That was Sam and Kenny kind of building their characters the way that they saw them.
Right.
I forget who the interview was with. It was like with some bigwig directors, not people like me. Like, I want to say it was like it might have been like Matt Damon and
oh, really?
and De Niro or something in a room. I'm probably wrong on this, but anyway, it was like one of those acting roundtable things. Maybe it was Tarantino said, don't give any notes about the character until you see the actor's first performance.
Sure, yeah.
Because once you give a note, you're only going to get your vision of the character. It doesn't matter how small the note is, because it's gonna anchor them to your vision. You got to let them do the first few without notes so that you can let their creative vision come to life. And if it's wrong, if it's not going to work, you can change it. But you'll never. They said the quote was something like, if you don't let them go up there without notes, you will never see what's in their head.
Right.
I did watch that and take that to heart, and I let it kind of play out, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
For a first-time director, Nick was very gracious. Most first-time directors, they have this vision, and they've been wanting to make a show for so long that they have a stranglehold on what their ideas are. So if an actor does something outside of what their ideals are, they lose their frickin' minds. I've seen it happen 10 times.
I'll give credit to a couple things for that. I've been making skits with friends since 2006, right? Actually, even before that. We used to make videos in the military. This is VHS days, so like we used to make like silly music videos and stuff when we were in the military because we were bored.
Right.
I have learned over time that the funniest stuff always comes from group interaction, not from whatever's in your head. You have to, so that's the first thing.
Because it feels more real.
Yeah. It gets funnier when people build on it.
Right.
But the second thing is, and I want to give Ross Patterson credit for this, he was in a very precarious situation when he was directing Range 15 because we were the producers and the actors and we wrote it. We actually could say, no, Ross, it's going to be this way. We never did. Never did that one time because we all understood he was the guy. We did have a very collaborative situation where normally the director dictates and everybody executes. And so in Range 15, there were a number of times where we were like, hey, Ross, what if we did this or what if we did that? And he really could have been like, guys, we're on a timeline. We're already behind. Like, shut up. Like, let's go. And he didn't do that. He always at least listened, and he either gave us a reason why it wouldn't work or we would try it. And most of the time, what he wanted was the right thing.
Right.
Everybody on set felt better because we at least got to try what we had in mind. Think about it like this. If you're mad at me, if I say something stupid to you right now, even if I didn't mean it, or if I shut you down when you provide some information, and I'm like, no, that's not it, right? And I've done this to people before, not on purpose, but we all have, right? Anything I say after that, you're not really hearing.
Right.
You're thinking about that motherfucker.
The negative interaction.
You're like, why did he do that? Why did he say that? Why doesn't he like my idea? Like, I didn't want to ever put the actors in that situation.
Right.
I wanted them to think like, hey, no matter what, like, your idea is valued. Let's try it if we have the time. If we don't have the time, that's different, right? But yeah, let's try it. Let's do it real quick. Go. But you can only do that, and this is the other thing. This is where you have to give credit where credit is due. I told the cast when we had our sit-down meeting and we did the read-through of the whole show, the way I want this to work is you show up and we shoot it, and within 3 takes, we have it, which means you have to know your lines. You have to show up prepared. If we do that, then we can give you 3 or 4 more takes where you can play around with whatever you want.
That happened a lot, too.
It did.
I mean, Jared and I remember there was one scene at least where I think we did like 8 takes.
Yeah, and we can do that because you guys were prepared. Now, if you showed up and you didn't know your lines, we would have had to spend tons of takes just getting through it, and then like your closes would it would have been a very different thing. But because you were prepared, your mind didn't really have to worry about the lines. They come to you when you know them.
That's something that I noticed was it almost felt like I'd be walking up to the set and I'm like, I don't remember what I'm supposed to say. And then there would be a cue or a prompt or Jared would say his, and then it was just like, bam, it just came out.
That only happens if you're prepared. There are actors, and we experienced this on the set of Range 15. There are actors that believe that they will only give a realistic performance if they don't know it until they get there. And I think those people are assholes.
That sounds like a nightmare.
But if you had been a hard ass, and if you had made Raph and Carter play it your way, it wouldn't have been the
They
show.
wouldn't have done it as well.
Yeah,
the show.
100%. If you think about your job as I have to get the best performances out of everybody versus they have to follow me, it's a different outcome.
Yeah.
Some people on our set, I can be very direct with Dan. I can be like, Dan, that sucked. I need you to do this. And because he's an athlete who has probably
Been
heard,
told he sucked 100
has
times.
probably been told he sucked, at least 4,000 times. And because we have a relationship where there's some trust, I can be like, hey man, that one sucked. He's not going to sit there and go, Nick thinks I suck.
Yeah.
He's telling me as fast as possible how to fix what just happened. I could not walk up to Christina on day one and be like, that sucked. And I'm not isolating Christina. I wouldn't do it to any of the people that I kind of just met.
But you don't have that rapport.
There's no rapport. I don't know what makes her tick yet. I don't know how her brain works. And so it's possible that she would take it the same way Dan did. It's also possible that she would be, oh my God, the director
This is a
thinks
hostile work
the
environment.
director thinks, well, this is a hostile work environment. Or the director thinks that I suck.
Right.
Or, oh my God, have I sucked the whole time? Or,
Yeah.
all those things, and so you have to kind of assess, who is this person? What do I know about them at this moment in time? And so instead of Dan, this sucks, it'd be like, hey Dan, it was really good. But the energy was a little lower. Like, can we really bring that energy way up?
To break this nonsensical rule so I can leave the army with a tiny ounce of positivity after getting fucked by the green weenie for over a decade.
Remember, this is what happened to the character. Like, we gotta reflect that. Like, maybe something facially, he's got to be a little upset. Versus, Dan and I have so many reps together doing skits and doing commercials and doing, I can be like, hey bro, that sucked. I need you to be outlandishly angry. It should feel uncomfortable. Got it. All right, go. And so, you got to look at everybody individually and like, what do they need in the moment to get the best performance they can, not what do I need from them, because you can't like extract if you're setting up a bad situation.
Right.
Like, everybody, I said at the very beginning when we were having that meeting, right? I said, if we're all having fun, we will get a great product.
Right.
And that's what happened. Is
yeah.
every day was a pleasure. Like,
It was a ton of fun.
when we wrapped, like the main cast was like, what am I going to do tomorrow?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
And that's what we want. That's what Hollywood and I wanted when we planned this out. And despite Dan's best efforts, it ended up being fun.
For the script specifically, right? Because
Yeah.
the script for this is hefty, like to say the least. Was it challenging writing the script for this? You had Range 15, but what were the significant differences between a movie and a show?
So I'll say this. The way that we did everything, first, we kind of had some ideas about what the episodes might be. We had a list of things that might happen. Then we started talking through who the characters were. This is some guidance that Danny Mayer gave me. He was the founder of Vet TV, and then he recently sold it to John Acevedo. Danny recommended that I write a 1-page to 2-page piece on every main character, so that you know the backstory, so that you have somewhere to draw from. So did that, and then once we had that, we kind of argued amongst ourselves, like, hey, maybe this character should have this character should have that. Then we got together and we basically, on a whiteboard, wrote out the beat outline of like, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. So as a group, we wrote the sequence of events.
Right.
And once we had the sequence of events, and maybe like some people threw out some lines, like it'd be funny if he said this or funny if he said that, and we, write it all out. Then I sat down with that beat outline, and I just wrote.
Right.
With that structure, it was very easy for me to write. I think it took me on average a week per episode.
Okay.
And
That's pretty decent.
And that's also doing my job. So
Sure.
like working, and then like, I'd basically be writing when all the employees went home for a few hours. So I think I wrote each episode in about a week. Does that?
Week and a half.
Yeah, week and a half. Four and 6 might have taken a week and a half.
Going in there. Get in there. Maybe this will make Nick talk better.
Are we good holding these, or should
Yeah,
we? Should,
yeah.
Dan Mercer, the lead of Office Joe, was just good enough to bring us these coffees. Like, Now, it's still possible that once once Office Joe goes wide, you know, it might go to his head, and we're not going to be able to make eye contact anymore. But for right now,
I mean, you already can't make eye
Dan,
contact.
well,
with him.
I can't make eye contact without a ladder. I'm literally a foot shorter than he is. But thank you, Dan.
How much influence did season 2 have on the writing of season 1? Were you already thinking about that?
Yeah, so my overarching structure to start with is every season has a theme.
Sure.
So the theme of season 1 was tribe. So Joe's search, or everyone's search for tribe.
Sure.
Season 2, tentatively, is a search for love. We basically have 4 seasons planned out,
Oh, cool.
culminating currently with looking for a sense of purpose,
Okay.
with, you know, potentially the final season. But we have 4 seasons planned out. They're all very different, but I don't want to get into that just yet. Let's
Sure.
get people watching season 1. But yes, season 1 ends setting up season 2. And I know how season 2 sets up season 3.
Sure.
And I know, I have that.
That's awesome.
I have that mapped out. Yeah. I've said this a few times. Having Hollywood as the producer is like directing with training wheels. And our dynamic is good such that he does stop me from doing a lot of stupid things, but also I don't want to say arrogance, because I don't think I'm a particularly arrogant person. But
Your positivity.
I have a lot of confidence that we will figure things out.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that Hollywood cautioned, he's like, listen, man, season 1, we're doing 6 episodes. Let's have no more than 15 characters. And I was like, got it, 15 characters.
Let's do no more than 22, 25 pages an episode.
So the average episode is about 40 pages, and there are 48 speaking characters in the show.
What's normal? Like what?
What he had?
15.
15.
Really?
15.
22, 25 pages.
Yeah, if you look at
15 speaking characters and 22 to 25 pages?
Yes.
Yeah. Go look at Tires, which was the top show on Netflix.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Really good show, too.
They
I
had,
mean, you really only have 5 or 6 main characters.
Yeah.
and even the one, and I think they only had 4 or 5 kind of slide in, other than maybe like the Bikini Girls.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it easier to film.
Yeah.
We had 48 speaking roles.
Right.
But my vision was season 1 was to introduce the characters and this world. And then future seasons, we dig deeper into the world.
Right.
Like, you can't introduce, like, even you guys, right? You and Jared, we don't introduce you until episode 3,
Sure.
but then you become, like, more consistently part of the show. If we had introduced you in episode 1, it would have been too much.
Yeah.
Because you were still learning about the other characters.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of people introduced in episode 1.
That's right. Season 1 is Joe finding his tribe and world building.
I don't know. I don't feel like all the speaking characters take away from it. It almost feels like, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, but it almost feels like, in a way, fan service to the community.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, you've got all of these recognizable faces. Even if they don't have this massive role, it's still cool seeing them there. You know?
100%.
Yeah, and so I liked that.
But it's even little things, though, like the handyman, right? Like, he's not a recognizable person, but it added something to just have that moment where it kind of upsets the apple cart
Sure.
in episode 1.
Because in real life, there are weird people in our lives that are just totally out there.
Eccentric. Give people a look behind the scenes. What were the inside jokes? What were the weird little conflicts that people had? What happened? You know, when did the lights fall over? What caught on fire?
It was really clean.
Really?
Like, I can tell you tons about, like, Range 15, but that was L.A.
Sure.
So everybody out there has these ridiculous personalities, and they all think they're the most important people. But Office Joe was in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Local North Carolina actors and veterans. I don't think we had a single freaking...
We were 100% a team.
Really?
In the 20 days that we shot, or 21 days that we were scheduled to film, there wasn't 5 instances of people getting upset with each other.
Really?
And I think 4 of those were probably me and the...
Yeah, I'll say, the only thing that was a true nightmare. Callie plays Ashley Marie. Her mom, Michelle, literally the sweetest woman in the world. She fell on set.
Oh, no.
And at first, when she fell, she was kind of smiling, and so we were like, it was a silly thing because it wasn't like a big fall. It was
Right.
she kind of rolled and fell. And then when she went to get up, she was in massive pain.
Oh, no.
And she actually broke her femur.
Oh my God.
And, so that was like, we were horrified, and thankfully, like, she's recovered extremely well, and
Sure.
that was a super scary moment.
So even with the chaos that you had, things went about as well as they could have. Like, it all went pretty swimmingly.
We had a couple, and I'm not going to get into who, but we had a couple of cast members drop out with 4 or 5 days to go.
Oh, really?
Before the show hit. And one of them was like it was a health situation.
Is that something you expect to happen?
Not like that. You expect one.
Right.
I think one person doesn't make it for some reason.
Sure.
But typically not main cast. But we had one person that
After accepting the role, after reading the script, a week later, decides that it's not.
Not a good fit?
Well, we had two, actually. The challenge of independent film is not everybody is like us. Not everybody has Hollywood. Not everybody has this much gear and this much stuff.
Sure.
We can make a high-quality product in a short period of time. Most independent film does not go well. Is that a fair statement?
It's a train wreck.
It's a train wreck. It's long days.
It takes a lot longer.
It takes a lot longer. It's maybe you get paid, maybe you don't. Like there's all kinds of things that happen. So one of the actors, and she's great. She was like, "Hey, you guys are shooting a whole series in a month. I thought we were doing just a pilot." And she was like, "I'm not up for that at this point in my career," because she wants to do bigger things. And like, no problem.
Sure.
Not an issue. But this other person, they're like, "Hey, they accepted, like, we offered the role, they accepted the role, and then they were like, hey, I've gone through the whole script, and I feel like my character swears too much, and I'd like to rewrite it." And I was like, "Go fuck yourself!" No.
And normally, that's a disaster.
Who you got to replace was...
It's not there's both the people that dropped out are great actors.
Right.
I would 100%, if the woman wanted to work with us again in a different capacity, I would because she was professional, she was immediate. Like, as soon as she understood the scope, was like, I can't do this because I'm just not up for it. Like, that's totally fine. But the let me tell you what your vision should really be,
right.
and
a week later,
and you should think about making this more high-minded.
And your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Not really. He didn't really say that to the guy.
I pretty much did in my way.
Yeah, but your way is much nicer than that.
Yeah, but it was clear I was unhappy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because it was bullshit. It was the last minute.
Yeah, and his tryout had all kinds of swears.
Yeah.
So there was no reason. It
Right.
wasn't like
It wasn't new.
Yeah.
It wasn't new. It wasn't like, oh, I had him read Hamlet, and then it was like... And the show doesn't even have that many swears. It's not that,
No, it's not that bad.
so
You go to any motor pool, and you got a lot more swearing.
it's not Range 15.
Yeah.
Which had Range 15 had more F words per minute than any movie in history, with the exception of a documentary on the word fuck.
All right, so you've spent 2 years of your life on this project.
Yep.
Okay, this is massive.
Yep.
Give me some of your best moments through this process, and then give me some insight and give the audience some insight into your feelings as we are very close to launch.
So there were, I know this doesn't make sense, but there were a few best moments. The first best moment is how integrated my family was into the project.
Your son did great.
He did. My wife did not want to be in this, maybe a small role, but not.
And then she killed it.
And she ends up as not the lead, but the second lead.
Sure, yeah.
And it wasn't just me. It was literally like Dan, Hollywood, the whole company kind of pushed her, like, hey, it's got to be you, after she did the read-through, right? So watching her have something, I am well aware it's probably a pain in the ass being, the wife of Nick Palmisciano, right? This was all her.
Right.
Between the two of us, she is definitely the better actor. Let me just put it that way. She killed it, killed the role. She's a lot of people's favorite character. A lot of women in particular have come up to me and said, like, that, not even realizing it's my wife, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, You know, that Karen character, like, she's so enthusiastic and positive no matter what happens, you know? And
Well,
so,
we've all had that boss.
yeah. So, I think she killed it. I wouldn't be surprised if she gets other work as a result of people seeing this. But also, you know, my kids, when you have a small project, you're literally, because we're a SAG, this was a SAG production, but it's a micro production. So we literally couldn't bring on like a stunt coordinator. You know, you can't ask like regular stunt people to do this stuff. So I was like, who do I know that can do these stunts that I'm not worried about getting hurt? And it's my kids. My kids all do combat sports. So they fight.
So nepotism was a theme in this show.
Huge nepotism in this show. Huge nepotism. So when you watch the bar fight and you see like a girl leap 4 feet in the air and jump on Joe's back and he throws her like across the room, that's my daughter, who is like, you know, an elite wrestler.
Oh yeah.
You know, the kid that gets headbutted after like slipping a few shots and liver punching Joe, that's my son Jack.
Yep.
The mariachi player that's in multiple scenes in episode 4
And was a fan favorite.
And his face when he was at the premiere in Raleigh, every time he came on screen, the whole crowd starts laughing. He just kept looking at me like, yep. You know,
That's amazing.
And he was 9 at the time. He just turned 10. Yeah, you know, like that was a really nice moment. For me, it's always an incredible moment sitting down and watching everybody laugh and enjoy it. You know, that's huge. But the third thing is, you know, and I include you in this. I didn't have anybody tell me no when I asked if they would be in this, even though, you know, you obviously did not get rich, you know, signing up for Office Joe, because, you know.
Well, we paid him something?
We did. We paid him.
You bastard!
Like Tim Kennedy, like a day of Tim Kennedy's time is very expensive.
Right, yeah.
You know, Tim came out for a couple of days. Jack Mandeville. Jared Taylor literally co-founded a billion-dollar company, and he flew out for a few days, you know, to film his roles. You know, even the guys that couldn't make it out, you know, like Ross tried to make it work. He was literally in the process of a multi-million-dollar deal for, you know, his seltzer, his, you know, hard as fuck seltzer. So like everybody that I asked either made it out or, you know, they couldn't for completely understandable circumstances. And it was really cool to know that even though people have no reason to be out, right? You know, Ashley Gutermuth, everybody was up for it.
So you felt like your community rallied around you to make this project a success.
100%. Because the show's not as good without you guys. Like, it's not as good without you guys. You've been very generous, like letting people know that it exists. And you don't have to do that. So the fact that everybody has, you know, makes me feel really good. And you know, I have helped a lot of people. It's not a transaction.
Yeah.
So it's not like I did this for you, you owe me this or anything like that. And most of the time, my experience has been whenever I've asked people for help,
right,
it hasn't really come.
Yeah.
You, Ashley, Jack, Jared, Jack Rea, Eric Tanzi. I can go on. I'm sure I'm missing people, but like Vince Vargas. I mean, Vince had just come off 4 seasons, you know, of Mayans FC, where he was making serious money. Like every episode was, you know, like a person's, you know, like the average, you know, income that a person makes in a year.
Right.
Every episode. And it was like, you know, hey, can you do this show? I can pay you a few $100 a day. And he was like, hell yeah.
Well, this is how our community should be. You know, how this project happened. We should be rallying around each other, and you don't see it as often, and it's kind of sad. And so, I don't know. I think it's a great example of what we should be as veterans, service members, the military in general.
I think,
And this came about because the American Legion, Nick's idea, the art in veterans.
yeah, and that was, another thing. So Hollywood's off here. Hollywood's running this interview. We are just puppets for Hollywood's grand design. Did I write Office Joe, or did Hollywood secretly do it and he's got a gun to my head right now? You'll never know. When we were looking around for support, I almost didn't go to the Legion because my thought process was, well, this is probably a little out there for the Legion. It's a pristine American
Yeah, I
brand.
thought the fact that the American Legion was so heavily involved in this is a beautiful. It shows their flexibility, their willingness to adapt. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. And when I brought it up to them, they loved it.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Yeah, this is incredible. Like, let's do this." And their thought process, the American Legion is going, investing a lot of money and time into a program they call Be the One.
Yeah.
And you know this, but Be the One is basically the idea, like, be the one in the life of a veteran that's in crisis. Be the one that makes a difference. Be the one that gives them another day. Be the one that, listens to their problems. And so, they looked at it and said, listen, we've got to meet veterans where they are, not where we in some, Ivy Tower would want them to be. So, like, every organization would prefer that there's a clean structure or whatever, but they liked the idea of, like, hey, every veteran does have challenges in transition.
Yeah.
Some are minor, like mine were minor, like I had to emotionally adapt and kind of, but some people have real crisis, like they can't get a job, they can't find friends, this is something that every veteran goes through. So let's show veterans that that's the case.
Right.
That even though they might feel like life is terrible right now, that they aren't special in this pain.
Yeah.
We all go through it. We all adapt.
I loved that the show stayed true to the comedy that the military and veterans love, because it's edgy, right? It's dirty at times.
Yep.
And I loved that the American Legion was still part of this, because a lot of these organizations, it's suit and tie, gelled hair, and there's a time and place for that, for sure.
For sure.
We've got our dress uniforms.
Yeah.
But we've also got our dirty boots. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it stays so true to everything that a veteran and a service member is.
I'll tell you, there was a big moment for me when, because we tend, even though we don't want to be treated this way. So, I am now officially an old. I'm not Hollywood.
You're one of the old heads.
I'm not Hollywood. Like, Gen X we're not spring chickens anymore. I just spoke at West Point yesterday, right? And I know, like, they were shocked at how I was talking because they look at me and they see an old, right? And I explained to them, like, it was a blink of an eye and I was there.
Right.
And so we have a tendency to think, oh, somebody has gray hair, white hair, they maybe they don't walk the same as well as they used to, that they've gone to some majestic place where they forget what it was like to be young, or they forget comedy, or they've changed. And I remember being nervous when my parents came to the premiere of Range 15 because it's so dark.
Right.
And my dad, who's a Vietnam vet, was laughing the whole time and was like, he said, I forgot how good it felt to be around other veterans, because he hasn't been around veterans.
And that is really cool.
It's really cool, and it also that conversation was the reason I asked the Legion.
Yeah.
Because I was like, because you meet Legionnaires, and like you see the guys, they're in uniform, they're wearing the hat, and you might think, oh, there's no way that they would laugh at this.
Right.
But then you talk to them, and it's like, this guy's a Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
This guy served in Desert Storm. These guys are GWAT veterans. Like, this woman, was in Korea. Like, you're like, of course they have a sense of humor, because if you lived through Vietnam, you think their humor wasn't as dark as ours.
Right. The average life expectancy
In
was
Vietnam,
like 15 seconds.
And it was really cool to have the Legion, not only support it, but we had people fly out from Indianapolis, to come to the premieres, and we, their headquarters, and we had, the North Carolina adjutant, Marth Cobble, came to the premiere here, and they got to see the Legion in action. Like, it was cool. Thank you, American Legion. We definitely appreciate it.
All right, so you've put years of your life into this.
Yep.
A ton of effort. A lot of sleepless nights.
Yep.
Where's your anxiety at as we launch?
The anxiety is that no one will buy it, that no one will watch it.
So you're just in crazy land right now.
I'm just in crazy land.
Yes, I can confirm that.
I'm in crazy land because I am not a believer past performance is indicative of.
Sure, yeah.
I have failed numerous times. I've not failed at the scale that we're currently at, and I'm hoping this isn't the first time. But it is a big ask to somebody to invest in, in you.
Yeah.
This show, more than anything I think I've ever done, is me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 100%.
Range 15, that was me and Ross and Jared and Vin. That was a lot of people, leaning into that and stamping their stuff on it. And, Scars and Stripes, that was Tim's book, Tim's life. Ranger Up, I was the face of it, but there were a lot of us involved. There were 100 people involved. So it wasn't like everything wasn't a reflection, so to speak, on my work and my. Right. And I don't fear that. I enjoy that. I live for those moments. But that's the eternal combat sports athlete in me. I enjoy having it on the line, for better or worse.
Yeah.
That being said, I've mobilized my company for 2 years. We've put a lot of money into this. We've got the Legion invested in us. We have, Salvation Coffee and the Worst Responders and, Main Street Bond. And there are people that have given us time, effort, money, our executive producers, you don't want to fail. And I want to play again.
Yep.
And to play again, this has to work. And so all of those things going through my head, and I am past the point though of doing if this doesn't do well, then it was a waste of time. I do not think like that anymore. Yeah. I love the show. I think we made a great show. I think it'll only get better in future seasons because we really have some momentum. And I'm glad I did it. So even if it was just season 1 and that's the end of it, I'm proud of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Proud of what we did. Got to work with my buddy Hollywood. Got to give you your debut.
My acting debut.
Got to see all my old buddies, Vince and Jared and Tim, and and they all came out. So it was a great time. I think we're gonna do well.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna do well.
Objectively, I think we're gonna do well based on all of the things we've kind of put in place and all the work we've done. But the emotional, caveman part of me is what if they all hate it? Please buy Office Joe on Amazon, on iTunes, or on DVD at officejoeshow.com, so that I don't have a mental breakdown, cry, my wife leaves me, and I die on a street corner.
I need him stable because he's the person I call when I'm having breakdowns. All right, help us out here.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.